Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Porsche Master Cup round number 6, the finale here today. And boy, do we have a race for you! Several championship battles. Nothing is certain at this point, and we are immediately going into qualifying. But I am Jesse Lee in for George G. Mac Smith here with Joshua Devonshire on the comms and Jake Coombs in the broadcast position today. And Josh, it has been a fantastic season, one that I have followed as a fan, but you have been here for the series, and it is all coming down to this.
Absolutely. There's at least two of our three championships, and it's kind of come down to the wire. I mean, final race of the season, and especially in the cup class, just a few points in it. So it's going to be a very interesting evening.
Yes, indeed. It is very close indeed. We'll actually get to that in just a little while. First off, though, 30 minutes of qualifying here for the three different classes in the Porsche Masters Championship. And we will crown three different champions today. The GT4, it is a bit further apart than the other two. It's absolutely close in the top two classes, the GT3 and the Porsche Cup. But in GT4, it is a little bit of a gap, but it's not over yet. You can get a maximum 65 points, and that is just on the edge of what's doable in GT4.
Absolutely, and as you say, everything to play for. It's a long race, and anything can happen, especially around a circuit such as Spa. Very complex, very technical. There's a lot of variation in corners. It's a great test track. It's not just in terms of driver skill, but in the cars as well. You're going to see a difference in setup. Some cars stronger in some areas than others. Each setup just as valid, maybe. So let's get right down to it. Coming onto the outlap now, but I see Andy Boardman just winding the tyres up just a little bit, trying to get some heat into them to start the first flying lap. He has the clear air ahead of him, and he's also the championship leader for the GT4, so he's going to be looking to get a really strong banker lap in.
Yes, indeed. Everybody is going to try and get the best that they possibly can do. Of course, we do start, if I'm not very much mistaken, we start with GT4 qualifying for the first 15 minutes. Is that not correct?
That is absolutely correct, Jesse. GT4s go out for around 10 minutes, and then the track gets handed over to the cup cars for 10 minutes, and then the track finally gets handed over to the GT3s. So each class gets a fair bit of clear air for themselves, and gets a good chance to get the times down that they need.
Well, of course, the reason that they do that is, like you said, Josh, to make sure everyone gets a little bit of clean air. And if you had three classes out there, even on a track as big as Spa-Francorchamps, it would be a bit of a problem. So everybody gets their own space to run, and there's also, it cuts down on the arguments of, oh, I was blocked by a slower class of car. Well, that is not the case here in this championship. And as somebody who has followed this championship with interest, again, as a sort of a fan, I will say it makes complete sense to me that it has come down to the wire. There's been a lot of dramas in the different classes, and I just, what are your sort of predictions for today, Josh? What do you expect to see at the end of this one?
Oh, I think it's difficult to say until we know exactly how qualifying stacks up, because anything can happen. Track limits and Spa, I think they're a very iconic duo, shall we say. So I think we're going to see a lot of lap invalidations, and it all depends on the starting order. We've seen very, very strong performances throughout the season so far by Boardman. We've seen strong performances by Pride, strong performances by Heilman, Sundstrom. We've had Mike Noble. That's a name that's popped up quite a lot this season too. Macaulay. When you've got a championship and so many drivers that could take it, so many drivers that have become so prominent over the course of the past few weeks, it's impossible to say at this point in time.
Well, folks, I hate to rain on the parade, but every now and then I get a bad feeling, and it's not that I'm always right, but I usually am when I get this feeling. And I feel like a championship this close today is going to be, especially in the GT3 class, I think it might be determined by driver error on the track in the race today. I don't know if there's any daylight between our top two or even three GT3 competitors, as Boardman makes the fastest lap for GT4, a 132, but immediately Kusma takes it away, and the number 7 at a 2:31.773. Nico Kusma getting it done early here in the session, 3/10
Oh,
in front of Boardman.
Quizma going back to pits, that could be significant. It's such a long track with a long lap with only 4 minutes left to go, and quite a long pit lane as well, actually. So that might that might really hinder Quizma if they decide to go out for another lap.
Yeah, you don't really have time in a 30-minute session that's split up the way that this is. You don't really have time to do things like that. You're really you're forcing yourself into a box if you do that, and that's exactly what they have done. Here's Andrew Pike for OTL in the third place position, 1.7 back. I feel like a lot of everyone from third on back in GT4, Josh, I feel like they went out there and just set a cruise control lap, just a lap to get on the board. And now they're absolutely going to go for it, which I don't hate that strategy. I use that myself quite often, where you go out, you just set a banker lap just to make sure you have a time, and then you absolutely push it. I don't think Kuzma and Boardman did that, by the way. I think that they were absolutely on it, but everybody else, and including Baranowski here, I feel like they just set a nice, calm, cool lap. What do you think about that? Is that the right strategy?
I think it's the right strategy, but I do think that Bodman also kind of took it maybe a little bit easy last lap. He's currently around 6/10 up on himself as well. So, I mean, he's only 0.3 of a second behind Quizma, who is out on track now, by the way, as well. He is he is out of that pit box, and he's obviously going for another run. I think maybe the realization of that he kind of needs to try and hold on to that provisional pole. But yes, no, I think Bodman set a relatively quick lap, but I don't think he was all out pushing. But I completely agree with you, Jesse. You kind of want to take a lap, take it a little bit easy, warm the tires up nice and gentle, and make sure your fuel level's good. Make sure you're comfortable in the car as well, because the car, it's not just the car that needs warming up; it's the driver for certain as well. And there we go. There's the provisional pole, although not by too much. Obviously, it was 6/10 up, but 3/10 down, but only 0.51 of a second in front.
I was very confused there. I saw a 31.7 and I was like, wait a minute, isn't that what Kuzma ran? And well, it's very nearly the same lap. 2:31.722 for Boardman, getting it done. Provisional pole in the 69. And that is going to knock Pike to the third place position, nearly 6/10 down. Everybody else is more than a second or so off the pace. 1.5, in fact, the nearest of all of them, as we have, this is Phil Webb, the Underdog Motorsports team, in the pit lane. They are not going to take part in this qualifying session. I wonder why that might be.
Not entirely certain. I mean, obviously free rights to the track being in GT4s, but obviously opting to stay in pit lane. So potential wanting to start from the back and fight way up through the pack, maybe it's a valid option, I guess, especially if you're not feeling all that confident going into into T1. But obviously T1 on the rolling start for this will be Urush. So maybe not wanting to go too side by side, maybe just want to play it a little bit safe. And on board with Nico Quizma, speaking of Urush, taking it very wide, a lot of cutting going across there. I don't think it was an invalidation. Oh, it was. Sorry, looking at my timesheet here, that was an invalidation for that lap. So they will pull the car over and bring it back to pits, and that leaves Boardman and Pike, and also Van Aken, also out on quick laps too.
Well, now it's time to put up or shut up. It's the end of the season, and you have to put it all on the line here today. We talked about the GT4 being the class that has the most work to do to win the championship or take it from the current championship leader, but It is still doable for the second place driver. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth at a later time. We'll keep you abreast of all the changes. We actually have Ryan Gill here today as well on the back end. Contrary to what normally happens, he's the one that's going to be doing the maths here today and keeping us up to date in the box. So thank you, Ryan, for being here on a Monday as well. It's a team effort here in the Porsche Masters Cup Series finale, and what a day it is likely going to be. You got to get everything now as Boardman is going to come into the pit lane, not all the way in, mind you, and then reset. Andrew Pike not doing the same thing. What does the OTL driver in the
Oh,
57 have? He's going to need about six
it's going
tenths.
to be
He's going to
quick.
lose some there on the end, and I believe, Josh, Andrew Pike could have taken the pole position provisionally there. He did a 31.746, 24 100ths off the pole pace. I feel like exiting the chicane, he lost a little bit, and that is going to bump him down to second, but still a massive improvement.
Look at how tight the top three are grouped together. Less than a thousand, oh, sorry, less than a tenth of a second separating everybody, and almost perfectly split in half between Pike and Kuzma, 0.024 and 0.51. So, yeah, it doesn't get much closer than that, Jesse. But obviously, now we've got the Cup cars coming out as well, and it's their turn to set qualifying laps. Obviously, you said before Pike lost a lot of time on the final chicane, and Spa can be a bit like that. It's a longer track, and as I said at the start, it's quite technical, and there's a lot of places you can gain and lose time, especially just through the smallest of mistakes. I mean, you get a line slightly wrong, you get on the brakes slightly wrong, and these cars are already such a challenge to drive. We've said every week so far, the driving aids for the Cup cars are different. You have ABS, but you don't have traction control. It's not going to be as an issue as it was at Silverstone, where we had the wet, but it's still not an entirely comfortable position to be in.
I was told by Ryan Gill earlier that, actually, we all were told by Ryan Gill earlier that there was a 10% chance of rain here. There is a chance. It is, however, a very small chance. But, Josh, I'm going to share something with you. I was once told that myself in a different sim that there was a 10% chance of rain, and it was 4 hours of a downpour. So anything is possible. 10% obviously means 90% of the time it isn't going to rain, but there's a 10% chance it might, though it doesn't look like that is going to happen, at least for right now. We're talking about Boardman and Pike. They were the 1-2 finishers in that qualifying session. And why is that important? Well, Boardman leads the championship over Pike. And if Pike could have taken the pole position away from him, then that would have given him the best position to try and challenge for this championship. But it is not over between the two of them. You can get 65 points a race, and they are only separated by about 35, 40 points between the two of them. It will take a massively horrific race from Boardman for Pike to do it, but it is not out of the question as we shift our attention to the Cup cars. And in my opinion, the hardest car in this entire sim to drive.
I'm willing to agree with you on that one. I feel like there are other cars that lack the aids. I mean, I'm looking at the Maserati GT4, and that feels like it's very much designed to be driven without aids. I think people think of that car and think, oh, it's maybe a little bit scary or it's a little bit of a meme, but at the end of the day, the car is designed to be driven like that. Where the Cup cars are just meant to be an absolute challenge. Obviously, it's its own spec in and of itself, and yeah, I think it's fun. It's a really fun car to drive, but it's very challenging to drive, especially at this level as well. Obviously, we are in the pro split, so these guys theoretically are setting like the fastest times, that we're throwing at the board today. So, to drive these things quickly is an absolute riot, but it's difficult.
Well, in the championship for the Porsche Cup cars, it is all about Joe McCauley and Mike Noble. Mike Noble, who was in chat earlier, and nothing phases that man. He is an absolute madman, but neither does it phase Joe McCauley. They are separated by 4 points, and folks, the difference between first and second in this race is 7 points. 1 points paying position can change and will change this championship in the Porsche Cup class, and it probably will come down to that. And when I said earlier that I thought a mistake might mean the difference between winning and losing this championship. I'm not talking about a big one. I'm talking about as simply here in qualifying as invalidating your lap when you're on a really fast lap. Who knows? Because it's only one single position. Alexander Guglia for nearly on pace comes through at a 2:22.734, the quickest lap. Mikael Sundstrom slots in 33 100ths behind them, and Ertan about 4.5 tenths off of that. Gergo a minute behind, and Killian Ryan Meenan 2.7. Rest assured that, in my opinion, the 778 and the 231 were sort of on a marginal pace of a lap. But here they all go again. James Parker, Mike, yes, indeed. James Parker, Mike Noble are out on the track. And here is James Parker.
It's James Parker, I believe, finishing their out lap. So I'm wondering if it could be the first flying lap. It could have just been a slight invalidation. And as I said before, seeing them left, right, and center. I mean, look at Mike Noble.
Hold on a minute.
Very wide.
Hold on a minute. Is Mike Noble's windscreen wiper going?
Yes, it is. Well spotted, Jesse.
Now why on earth would Mike Noble do that? And yes, confirmed by Jake Coombs there.
Oh.
Now I feel like he's doing that on purpose.
Well, maybe got the stream up, heard us talking about rain and just trying to psych us out a little bit as commentators in the box, maybe. I mean,
now was this on purpose? We're about to find out. He's on the straightaway perfectly. Yes, that was absolutely on purpose. Mike Noble memeing it up here. You can tell he takes his sim racing very seriously. That's the thing. I told you about that. Mike Noble, nothing phases that man for FFS racing, does it? I mean, he doesn't care. It's all about having fun for him, and as it should be. Sim racing is for everyone. Sim racing is to have fun, and it's really hard to have more fun than Mike Noble.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, you can tell just from the liveries that man creates. I mean, every race it's been something absolutely atrocious, and I think, as George would say, disgusting, both in terms of livery and skill on track. So, I think that's a very good choice of words. I mean, look at those rims, just those highlighted yellow with the pink rim, with the pink kind of lining, and then you've got like the pink base color with the gold kind of bronze, like kind of Christmas wrapping, as I like to call it. But yeah, very trademark Mike Noble.
Yeah, for a very long time here at RCI, we followed Mike Noble's adventures in liveries, and I think he's outdone himself in this particular race. I think we might have a winner, as Joe McCauley is currently the winner of the provisional poll for the Cup cars, going 2:22.203, 4/10 quicker than Guglia. But what can James Parker say about that, finishing their first flying lap?
So James Parker was an invalidation again. So that no time on the board still, with only 2 minutes left to go. And that's a very, very good point, Jesse. Only 2 minutes left to go. And Mike Noble pulling back into the pits. So I do question whether or not Parker and Noble are just going to opt to not set a time, similar to what we saw with Phil Webb in the GT4s, and just for some reason starting back. But in my eyes, for Noble, that doesn't really make too much sense, because obviously you're in the fight for the championship. It's very, very close, and obviously you want to be starting as far ahead as you possibly can.
Well, here's the thing about Mike, and this is just sort of what I've noticed. As we're seeing Joe McCauley, current pole sitter for the hashtag Blame Mike Jones team, and I think we can all get behind that particular hashtag. But Joe is just absolutely drifting around here, and that's what scares me about the Porsche Cup car. It doesn't scare him, obviously. He's way more talented than I'll ever be, but it's just that's how you have to drive that car some of the time. And though I feel like he was having a bit of fun with the exuberance of the lap there, but other than that, going back to Mike Noble, yes, indeed, drifting the car, going into the barrier there. I don't know why Mike Noble would do that, other than the fact that he saw Jardier do that in a Porsche Cup car once at Laguna Seca and went, I can do that too.
Quite possibly. I mean, another potential, don't rule it out, is maybe maybe an equipment failure. Like maybe, we saw the wiper on, maybe something's glitched up somewhere and controls being changed, maybe the car just jerked itself to the side. Who knows? I mean, it's unlikely and a bit far-fetched, admittedly, but yeah, Joe McCauley on provisional pole for the Cup cars right now, with Ertan coming in second, less than 2 tenths behind. A bit of a cut at the top of Rouge there. It's an hour and it's an hour and 15-minute race, and we've seen track limits occasionally come to bite some of the drivers this season as well. And I would be very surprised if we don't see a similar story here. Done heading back to the pits. McCauley still out on a lap. Not really changed in the delta, but we're on board with Alexander Guglia, currently 4 tenths down on the provisional pole, and currently also half a second up on their previous time. So if they keep this pace going, that could overtake Joe McCauley for that position, but still a fair bit of time to go for this lap. It's still coming through Puon now, so there's still plenty of time to make up or make or lose time. Still half a second ahead.
I have news, Josh, from the chat that there was, and this is going to make more sense to us in the booth, there was apparently a pact between McCauley and Noble that they would not qualify, start in the back, and race it out through the GT4 pack. And Mike Noble in chat confirming that Joe McCauley broke their agreement and qualified, and that would explain why they have decided to, or why Noble decided to not run that lap.
Oh, that explains. It did cross my mind. It genuinely did cross my mind, and no, I mean, from Mike Noble's perspective, I mean that's a shame to see. Obviously, if you've got a gentleman's agreement with someone, you really should be sticking to that. I think, especially when there's a championship on the line. And let's face it, who doesn't want to see McCauley and Noble fight their way through the GT4s and through the rest of the Cup cars for the championship? I mean, that would have been an amazing battle. I feel a bit robbed, to be honest with you, Jesse. So, notice to the steward. I mean, I think we need McCauley's input on this as well. And then maybe try to come to some kind of agreement. But as it stands, McCauley will be starting at the front of the Cup car grid.
Well, I'm just very quickly trying to figure out how many points you get for pole position. I think it's one singular point, isn't it, for qualifying on the pole position. So Joe McCauley, already with a 4-point lead, could stretch it out to 5. Now, that won't matter in the grand scheme of things. If Mike Noble wins and McCauley finishes second, Mike Noble still wins the championship because you get 7 points or 7 more points for a win than you do second place. So it doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things unless they both finish back in the pack, in the middle of the pack somewhere, where you only get 3 or 4 points more per position. So Ryan Gill is with us today, and he will help us all keep track of the points in the 75-minute race. And in the meantime, it is all on the GT4s for the qualifying here to end the qualifying. And I'm being told by Ryan Gill it is 4 points for a pole position, not 1 point. So that does change things dramatically then, the 4 points for pole. And that will mean that Joe McCauley, if he wins this race, it doesn't matter, but Joe McCauley will need to finish third. Mike Noble will need to win. But of course, there's also the matter of the fastest lap. 3 points for the fastest lap in each class. Mike Noble better hope that he has his extra sticky tires on today, I reckon. Thank you to Ryan for updating me on that.
Absolutely, and I think we're about to see a masterclass in overtaking from Noble, to be completely honest. I mean, starting, not having a time on the board at all means we're definitely going to see some a bit of a hard charge, I think, going through the field, and maybe feeling a little bit betrayed. Maybe we'll see some emotions coming to it, as we see Hellman setting the first fastest lap of the GT3s. Very solid lap time as well, considering it's a fast track and not optimum. It's very cool 16 degrees of a 2 minutes 18.4. Stanshu will try to follow up, but not quite get it done, as will Leffer. Over 1.2 seconds to 1.4 seconds behind, so Banfield will give it a look too. Banfield obviously quite high up in the points as well. Get a little bit closer, 7/10 behind, but still not quite enough. Cody Pride with a new livery for this race. Very standoutish actually, with the bright colours, and will cross the line, but has not set a time. So I'd imagine potentially an invalidation there. Fouchard will be taking that kind of very wide. I think also an invalidation, but setting up to get the best exit to start another flying lap. 4 minutes and 40 seconds left to go of the GT3 session. The pink and blue, pink elephant racing of Hellman heading down towards No Name. It just looks very standout, doesn't it? Especially in the kind of grey, cloudy overcast that we have at the moment. Making absolute full use of the track there, and very quick time, 2 minutes 18. I mean, that's quicker than I can do even on a hot lap. So,
Well, Benjamin Heilman, otherwise known as Stewie, not really involved in the championship battle today, but this is still very important because Heilman could find himself as high as fifth in this championship if he, well, let's say he gets the pole position, fastest lap, and then wins the race. He could very well be on for a top 5 spot. Not been the best season for the Pink Elephant Racing Porsche, but still inside the top 10 in points, 7th place right now, and within striking distance of 5th here on the final weekend of the season, and looking good so far. And I want to go back to something you mentioned, Josh, about invalidating the lap of Fouchard and now getting the best run out of the chicane down the straightaway. That's what Jordan needs to do. That's what everybody needs to do. If you mess up your lap, that's fine. Go ahead, if you've already invalidated it, get the best possible run up you can, and get a little extra boost down the straightaway. And who knows, with how close some of these teams and drivers have been, a thousandth of a second that you gain could be the difference. Stanciu getting second place there, 191, 7/10 off of Heilman, and absolutely nobody close to the 24, and that is surprising.
absolutely, and yeah, absolutely. It's close, but not so close. I think for qualifying so far, but some of the guys at the top of the championship table are still to set a time. So, you know, the exception of Bodman, I'm noticing a bit of a trend here. You know, the guys at the top of the table not really setting times in quality until a little bit later. But this track is kind of brutal. Obviously, it requires so much concentration and attention. As you see Fouchard run just a little bit wide there, so I'm not sure if that was an invalidation. It looks like it was. They have lit up red on my timing sheet. So this will be another. I don't know if the invalidation was just there or whether it was earlier in the lap, but this will be another kind of bum lap for them, and they'll have to go around yet again. You see Cody Pride in front as well, and Cody Pride is also on an invalidation, but I believe, actually, no, these were also out laps. So, these were also out laps.
Look at Jordan backing it up, warming up the tires, getting everything. They know that for Jordan Fouchard, this could be, the season.
Yeah, absolutely. This is last chance saloon. There's not a lot of time to actually put a time down. Update on Phil Webb, by the way. I've just also been told that the reason they didn't set a time is because something happened during qualifying and they had an incident up at Radion. So that explains why the GT4 didn't set a time. But the focus right now is on the GT3s, and here you have Cody Pride, who is, let's face it, they have shown this season they just have absolute pace, and playing a little bit safe. Will they play it safe? They will a tiny bit. I mean, they didn't cut Radion too far. The lap is still valid so far, and that is one of the key areas that you're going to see laps invalidated, just at the top. So, at the top of the hill, it's such a blind kind of corner, you don't really see where the curb is. Coming down into Lycombe, little bit of a slide. Really using all of the curb. They kind of just get the car rotated, get the car around. Coming down onto the exit now. towards the off-camber hairpin going down towards No Name. Keep it nice and tight and get the best exit that you can, and just try to carry the momentum. Swing the car right, use all the track, use all the curb. Don't unsettle the car too much on the run down to Puon. Just try to carry, again, it's about carrying momentum. It's all these high-speed corners that, you can tune the car for low drag to make the run down the Campbell Straight easier, but this is where you'll start to suffer if you set the car up like that. Coming down onto the exit, braking at the bridge for the right-hander. And again, update on the timing. They are a second, and they're about a second up on themselves. But I don't know what that time was taken from coming through the stab blocks. Still keeping it clean. It's still valid. So as it stands, this lap will put them on the grid. But only a few more corners to go, Jesse.
Can't make a mistake here. It is all or nothing. It's put up or shut up time. It is literally extra time with a tied game, and you have to get everything that you possibly can. What can Cody Pride do? In the Mike Slobel made me pick BMW, where you're in a Porsche today, mate, and you have to get everything you can. What's it going to be coming to the line? Is it going to count? And it will. It's a 17.778. But what about Jordan Faucheux? Jordan Faucheux goes quickest, a 17.691. 87/100ths quicker than Cody Pride, and getting it done is Jordan Faucheux in the number 11 over the 15, and the stare down as if it's a UFC title fight, the lights flashing, and it is game on for the GT3 championship here at the Porsche Masters Cup, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
That was just amazing, honestly. This has set the scene, I think, for what is going to be an absolutely epic battle between these two. Less than, again, like earlier on, less than a tenth of a second separating them, and as you said there, that stare down. I don't think there was any other way more appropriate to end qualifying, any other position that they could actually be faced in to end qualifying. Look at that. Benjamin Haleman with the quickest first sector, Pride with the quickest middle, and Faucheux with the quickest third. So between these three drivers, they have the pace to really put on a bit of a show for us today.
Yes, indeed. Well, here is the results from qualifying in GT3. Faucheux outqualifies Pride, but by a ever so slim margin. Heilman will start third with Stanciu in the second row, and behind them, of course, you have Banfield and LaFay, and those are the 6 GT3 drivers. A lot of sign-outs towards the end of the season, but you only need 2 cars to have a race. Moving on to the Porsche Cup cars, Joe McCauley out-qualified Ertan. Googly and Sundstrom will share the second row. Gergo Panker, Killian Ryan Meenan the next. And on the back row, James Parker and a very betrayed Mike Noble will round out the the Porsche Cup field. And going right along to GT4. This is the biggest class on the grid, and Boardman out-qualified Pike in very close fashion between the two of them. These two are having a fantastic fight between them. Kuzma and Gleason will share the second row. Baranowski, and Vondra. Then Redman and Van Aken. Kingston Lee, I like that name. For some reason, Tang and Jacobson, and then all alone, starting on the back, will be Webb, who did not run a qualifying lap. And those are your drivers, and where they will start for this race, where they will finish, nobody knows. 3 different classes, 3 different championships, all going to be decided here today. It's 0 hour at Spa for the Porsche Masters Cup. And I get to do Josh dirty here. I get to ask him who's going to win all the categories. Josh?
Honestly, at this point, it's very difficult to say. However, should we run through the championship standings as they stand so we know what's going on going into the race?
Yes, indeed. Let's show everybody what the championship standings looks like. This is what we've been talking about in the qualifying, and starting with Pro. Jordan leading the championship over Cody. and it is ever so slim. A few points makes a difference, and these do include, by my best estimate, the qualifying points, because the tables look a little different than they did when I looked at them a minute ago. So just 9 points, or excuse me, a little bit more than that now that I see that, 11 points separates the two of them for show and pride. Leffe in third place, 227 the mark. They're fighting with Antonio Soretti in the fourth place position, and back in fifth, Shishnov in fifth place. Banfield, Heilman, Stanciu, Knight, and Luigi Vita in rounding out the top 10. Some of those drivers, of course, not here today. Only 6 drivers showing up in the Porsche or in the top class. And here are the drivers that have had a terrible championship. And I don't think any of these are here. Sky Burgess, Rommel, Carradas, Alvarez, and Young. I don't think any of those teams are here today in the GT3 Pro class. Moving right along to the Cup class, Joe McCauley leads Mike Noble by just a handful of points. It says 4 here, but I can tell you that it's now up to 8 points. McCauley over Noble. Noble starting dead last today will have his work cut out for him. Killian Ryan Meenan in the third place position. Still within striking distance, mind you, is Ryan Meenan. Has a chance, but of course Ryan Meenan tied for third with Mikhail Sundstrom at 220. Both of those teams still have a realistic shot. And now we go to the teams that perhaps don't so much, that are racing more for pride. Alexander Guglia, Gergo Panker, who is tied with James Parker. That is not at all difficult to say, Panker Parker. And Hyla Kallio in the 8th place position. Ertan and Karsten round out the top 10. And these drivers also not here today, struggling. Whitford, Akar, Rubliar, and Lukasek not on the grid today. Will not receive any points. And the GT4 field looks a bit like this. It is a longer road for Andrew Pike in second place to get by Andy Boardman, but it is still possible. Kuzma in third place doesn't have a shot to win the championship, but if Pike has a terrible race, could take second. Kingston Lee in fourth place, and Baranowski in the fifth place position. Behind them, Joe Gleason, Van Aken, Redford, Vondra, and Jacobson, the top 10. And as there always is, drivers that have had a bit of an issue this season. Jolly, Webb, who is here today and stands to gain points. Tang, Valentine, Reynolds, Dubeck, and Heidman are the final drivers on the GT4 points board. And I can tell you, it is very close, as you will have seen running through all of those points totals. Very close indeed towards the top of it. Now, Josh, I'll ask you, who do you think wins each championship today? Do we have a surprise in store?
I would. In the race to make up for the qualifying. I mean, part of me wants to have the belief and say yes. However, I do also know racing's very competitive, and when you're at the front and there's a championship on the line, I'd blame Macaulay too much for just wanting just to gun it and go for it. Apparently, Ryan Gill saying can't hear comms, so I don't know if that's okay. There we are. So yeah, I wouldn't blame Macaulay for just wanting to go for it. But in terms of the GT3s, obviously it's a much smaller field, so less chances for surprises. But I mean, you got to put your money on Pride or Fouchard, right?
Yeah, I would never bet against the Pride crew. I know they're in chat here today, as they always are. Hello to all the Pride crew and potentially the Pride family if they're here today, and maybe we will see Cody Pride once again demonstrate just how mega of a driver that he is one car to get around and a little bit of luck necessary for Pride, but it is well within the question. If the 11 finishes third and Pride wins the race and has the fastest lap, well, Cody Pride is your champion in GT3. As everybody sets out on the sighting lap before we go green for the final time in the Porsche Masters Cup. Just an update about the track conditions. Track is fast, not optimum yet, and it is 15 degrees C with a little bit of a tailwind picking you up the Kimmel Straight. This race, of course, 75 minutes or an hour and 15 if you like. 5:05 a.m. the start time. And well, I asked you who you thought was going to win. I'm going to give it to Pride simply because I've seen him do it before. I think Pride's going to win. I also think Mike Noble is going to bust in like an anime character and beat our good friend Joe McCauley and make him pay for his transgressions. Top 10 anime betrayals on full display here today. And, well, I think GT4 settled, to be fair.
Yeah, I want to say I'm willing to agree. However, I think to keep this interesting, I think I'm going to back the opposites. I mean, I'm going to, just to be a little bit different. Just to be a little bit different. So I'm, for sure. I mean, yes, Pride is very, very quick, but still, behind at the championship standing so far, so all to play for. And I'm not gonna, and Fouchard coming in with that quality lap as well, so just pipping Pride's that, so I'm not gonna rule Fouchard up just yet.
Well, Fouchard is the man that everyone is trying to beat here, including Cody Pride. Pride missing the GT3 pole by less than a tenth of a second. We'll put it that. It was very close indeed. So these two very evenly matched, as you would expect. If you haven't been with us all season, these two, the 11 and the 15, have been swapping wins back and forth all season long. There has been no consensus of a winner, and we've made it to this point where nobody is safe in the top 2 or 3. And a lot of these other drivers, like Benjamin Heilman, for instance, who are racing for their own glory, tried to get into the top 5 standings. And, of course, Stanciu and Banfield and Leffe all in there as well. Joe McCauley, who apparently backstabbed Mike Noble in qualifying and actually did qualify. Apparently they had some deal that they weren't going to qualify. Mike Noble held up his end of the deal. Joe McCauley says, I'm here to win this championship. I'm here to collect trophies.
Absolutely did him dirty, from what we've been told. So,
well, Joe's of the mind that no matter what happens, you can hashtag blame Mike Jones. So, Mike Noble, if you can still hear us, not only good luck on your endeavors today, you're going to have to pass a lot of cars, mate. But also, Joe McCauley would like you to know you can blame Mike Jones for that. Of course, McCauley is going to have to fight Ertan immediately, and Mikhail Sundstrom, who hasn't had the best of seasons here in the Cup car, but it is a very difficult car to drive indeed. And, of course, Guglia Panker and Killian Ryan Meenan. It's shocking to see Ryan Meenan qualify where he did. But, well, qualifying is one thing. Racing is quite another. Boardman and Pike line up in their positions they are in the championship. So, very interesting indeed. Will take quite a big of a gap for Boardman to lose this championship. He can do that, by the way. If Pike wins this race and Boardman finishes somewhere around 10th or 11th, and Pike does set the fastest lap, I think Pike, I'm pretty sure Pike could win this championship. But that's what we have Ryan Gill for. Ryan Gill will be, not only is he acting as the bot in the chat today, because of some issues that we may be having. Thank you, Ryan, for that. Thank you for spending part of your time. And also, everybody out there watching on RCI TV, thank you for spending part of your afternoon on this glorious Monday to watch the championship finale here in the Porsche Masters Cup. They will come around turn 1 and start on the GT straight. An absolutely brilliant move.
Absolutely, and you just feel the tension from here. Obviously, there's a lot on the line, for some of these guys, and a lot of making up to do as well, in terms of Mike Noble and James Parker. And I feel very sorry for Phil Webb being caught in the middle of those, but that is not important right now. The important thing is we are about to go lights out.
Well, here we go. The long run down the hill into Eau Rouge and Radion. You got to wait, be very patient. There'll be nervous butterflies in the stomachs of all the drivers looking to win championships here today. Really late is the flag, and all of a sudden the green lights go on, and it is a procession start as nearly all the GT3 drivers go single file up Radion, and it looks like a fairly smooth start so far.
Absolutely on the back wing of Fouchard, you see Cody Pride tucking into the slipstream, trying to maybe make an early lap move, getting right up to the bumper of the back of Fouchard. Fouchard will have the inside going into, though, goes a little bit wide, maybe in defense, because kind of cuts off a little bit. Tires will be cold, only a 15-degree track right now, so it's very, very difficult to warm up on one lap alone. Obviously, tires will be nowhere near up to pressure. Cody Pride, take a look on the inside, not going to quite make it stick. He thinks a bit better of it. Now, all this scrapping going on.
Oh, it's wide!
Fouchard's gone wide. That means that Cody Pride's going to take the opportunity to sit down the inside. Not quite going to make it work. Fouchard, excellent defending, keeping Pride behind. He knows exactly what's at stake here. On the run down to Puron now, Cody Pride going to take another look on the inside. Try to sell a little bit of a dummy maybe. Goes left, goes right. Doesn't quite make anything of it, but tucks in behind Fouchard, and that was a very, very tense couple of corners.
Well, it was an excellent defense by Fouchard, but Cody Pride will not take that very lightly. There was not room for Fouchard to come all the way back across the track. Contact between the 11 and the 15. None that would cause any damage to really speak of, but beside the point, a bit of very defensive driving to start with, and all that will do for Cody Pride is spur him on in his championship title hunt. He has to get job one done, and job one is to get around Fouchard.
Absolutely, and this is the part of the race as well. You establish a presence with the cars around you, and you can almost play it as more of a mental game, if anything else. You can kind of make an impression to the guy in front and be like, "Hey, listen, I'm here to win this. I'm not going to give you any space. I'm not going to let you breathe. And this is going to be your next hour and 15 minutes trying to keep that green car behind, in P2." And watching a race replay at the moment, looks like a little bit of contact. I think that was.
Oh no, Joe Gleason. And I think there was something amiss with the blue Porsche there. They were very slow. I don't know if there was a distraction in the cockpit or what, but a mistake, and that has taken Joe Gleason out of the race and put them right at the back of the field. I think that was Redford in the 2, is that blue Porsche. And that's very unfortunate, but it looked to me, Josh, like something distracted Redford that caused that incident because it was so strange.
I think the thing to... Oh, hang on. Going down into Lycum again. I will get back to the GT4 thought in just a second. Cody Pride looking on the outside. Is he going to make it stick? I don't know. The switchback could happen. Pride on the inside now, but now Fouchard's back on the inside. Side by side through the entire complex, and Fouchard will just about keep Pride behind, but Pride could look down on the inside of the next turn. I don't think that's going to be the case. There's enough of a gap formed, and Fouchard will not make the same mistake as lap 1. The thought on the GT4s, by the way, Jesse, is that the Cayman does actually have the road car electronics on the ABS, so going down into the tablets, if there's any sort of like steering input as you're braking, what tends to happen is the ABS kicks in and it doesn't allow much braking to be applied at all, and the car has a tendency to kind of just go straight on, so maybe just a little bit of a misjudgment in inputs there, and just got caught up by the electronics.
Yes, indeed. Well, something else to think about here is Fouchard defending so hard for first. He must know that he has enough points that if he finishes second, he still wins the championship. Of course, you want to win outright, but is it worth racing Cody Pride, who literally has nothing to lose here from getting racy with him? So if you were in Fouchard's shoes, Josh, would you just let him go at this point, or would you fight him knowing that if something were to go wrong, Lord forbid, that you're the one that has everything to lose? How would you do this?
I think if he lets him by, then I think whatever he has to lose may already be lost. Obviously, we know Pride's pace, and as soon as he gets clear air, that can be the case if he just storms off. So if I'm Fouchard, I'm defending this to the hills. I will die on this hill if I have to, and keep the dream alive. And that's exactly what Fouchard is doing right now. Pride glued to the back of the number 11. Absolutely glued, pulling ahead of Howman just a little bit. But Howman's still doing a very good job to keep up. But you know, again today these guys are scrapping, so that's not good for overall lap time. Cody Pride cutting a little bit too far on the inside of Urush. That will be an invalidation. I don't know if there's any time advantage gain there, so I'm not sure about any warnings. Heilman coming down side by side with Cody Pride, taking on the outside of Lecombe, and maybe actually in with a shot of taking P2 here. That is not what Pride will be wanting. I mean, very similar moves that we saw on Pride on Fushaw a lap or two ago, but again, same result, not really able to make it stick. But Heilman definitely establishing a presence, and look at the gap that is formed between Pride and Fushaw now. For giving Pride a little bit more work to do, and Fushaw will be absolutely hoping that they could hold each other up, and just to create a little bit of breathing space, because that is not going to last forever.
Well, Cody Pride will be frustrated indeed, like you said, from Heilman racing him there, because not only did that string out the lead to Fouchot, it also probably made Pride heat up his tires a little bit more than he would have wanted to. But all of a sudden, Benjamin Heilman coming back into the picture here, looking very racy indeed. And you can't tell a driver that, hey, don't get involved with this battle for the championship, because that's not in the spirit of racing, and that's not what racing drivers would want anyway. Heilman trying to claw their way back into the top 5 here. They showed pace in qualifying, so it is game on here early. A couple of updates from the field. Mike Noble has gotten onto the caboose of the Porsche Cup field for FFS Racing. There he is in the about 1.7 seconds off of James Parker right now, but that is Parker in front. So clear of the GT4 field and just hanging out in the background here for now. Not making as much progress as I expected, but that might have something more to do with Parker as we go to Mikhail Sundstrom working on Killian Ryan Meenan. Love watching these two drivers race each other. They've been known to, well, we'll just say they get physical sometimes.
I mean, that's definitely one way to put it. I mean, very racy, stick your elbows out, especially, you know, final round of the championship. I mean, it's absolutely all to play for, and, you know, these drivers leaving absolutely nothing on the table at all. See Michael Jacobson taking a look down the back end section. I believe that is Gleason up ahead. Obviously, Gleason was caught up in the instant earlier, so making good progress. And look at Jackson just late on the brakes. I think that was not entirely intentional, moving out of the way to avoid contact. I mean, I'm pretty certain that Gleason will be very thankful for that. But that has just put them under fire. That's just put Jacobson under fire to Zoe Tang, who will take a look into the source, but not quite be close enough. But the gap close enough that maybe looking at eyeing up an overtake, and Phil Webb making good time as well, catching up from not setting a qualifying lap too.
Well, I feel like Webb's not setting a qualifying lap was obviously deliberate, did not want to get involved in any early scrums, and fair point to Webb. They have survived the first part. They're very tame. I wouldn't say tame. Tame's the wrong word. It was very spirited, the start of the race, but no real incidents other than the Redford one that seemed to be very odd indeed, as Joe McCauley nearly looking like they're spinning the car. That is a way to get extra pace out of it, as McCauley leads Guglia by 3 seconds. Guglia has more problems because Ertan right behind him is hounding him for second place. Meanwhile, Joe McCauley making as much time as he possibly can. 7/10 in one sector. Absolutely on the ragged edge is Joe McCauley.
Absolutely, and that is a double-edged sword. And you push closer to the limit, and it's so easy to just stray the wrong side of it. And we've seen it so many times in this championship before, especially with the cup cars. You know, we've seen them go around in circles. We've seen mistakes happen, and
Look who's back.
Yeah, Noble will be hoping up for that. And as you say there, Jesse, that gap that Pride that Fouchard had built is slowly but surely being eaten into. Cody Pride making up the space, making up the gap, and just look at the speed, flat out upper rouge, as you should be. Looking back at the way ring of Fouchard now, and you can't mistake the presence of the 15 Porsche. you know, the dark blue and the highlighted green. It's absolutely menacing, and look at that, so late on the brakes. That gap of what was left of it just absolutely closed up in a single move. I mean, Pride leaving absolutely nothing on the table here. Fouchard maybe trying to be a little bit more conservative, trying to be a little bit safe, you know, wanting to pull away, but in terms of raw pace, we know what Pride can do, especially over a long stint. I mean, I'd like to liken Pride a little bit to maybe to Colin McRae, incredibly quick, but you know, we have been seeing mistakes come through on their end as well, so I'd imagine Pride also trying to rein that in just a little bit. You know, there's a bigger picture going on here, you know, it's like it's these small little steps that have led up to this, and you know, everything to play for.
You have to be very careful, like you said, but if you are Fouchot, again, you just have more to lose here. And of course, everybody in chat, Josh, agreeing with you 100%. You want to win. Even our broadcaster, Jake, completely agrees. You have to try and win this race. You want to win the championship and win the race. And you do, but I will say you got to be careful of, well, excuse the pun, you've got to be careful of your pride because it can cost you a lot. It's weighing the pros and cons, and I'm just saying that Fouchot has more to lose than to gain, but it has been very good racing so far, and good on Jordan Fouchot and Cody Pride, for that matter, keeping it very clean indeed, but very strong racing out of the two of them, and they're only getting started. It's hard to believe more than 12 minutes has gone by in this race, and the leaders are still nose to tail. Joe McCauley has 5.3 seconds of a lead on Guglia in the second place position in the Porsche Cup class. There is the gap, and that's what about 5-6 seconds looks like, as Ertan is continuing to make trying to make a pass for the second place position, and they are all nose to tail. That is only helping Joe McCauley right now, that they are all nose to tail in the Porsche Cup field. Very interesting indeed. After running several laps, that is the entire Porsche Cup field in one single line.
No, very, very consistent between everyone. Obviously, McNoble falling behind a little bit, which is surprising to see, but obviously can happen. We see Olaf Leffert lining up a potential move onto Stanchu. Again, absolutely adore the team colours that Leffert is running, but very, very standout, especially against the great overcast that we have at the moment. And it looks like Stanchu just holding Leffert up just a tiny bit in terms of lap time. Looking at the best laps so far, Leffert has been going quicker, not by a whole lot, but consistently too. So Leffert maybe being a bit held up here.
Yes, indeed. You have to be very careful navigating around this track in the Porsche Cup cars, but you can get racy with them. I can assure you of that. And also, you mentioned too, the track temp is coming up, and it will continue to do so as we get ever closer to sunrise. And bear in mind, cannot see the sun yet, but we will do near the end of this race, and the sun will illuminate 3 brand new RCI champions. What a glorious day it is going to be, and it has already lived up to the hype in the billing, and namely the title fight between Fouchot and Pride. It may not be a championship deciding move this pass here or this fight, but it is just more of the same that we have seen this entire season.
So it just nose to tail, door to door racing, and at the end of the day, that is exactly what brings us all here. It's what brings you guys here to watch it. It brings us here to commentate and bring you all that is going on at the moment. And I mean, just a love of racing in general, it has to be said. I mean, again, the gap being forward to Stewie now. Stewie's starting to fall behind that Benjamin Howman in the 24 Pink Elephant Racing Porsche. And as we're heading towards into the forest now, you see the two leaders having, let's face it, is an absolute showdown. There's no other way to describe it. And Cody Pride just, again, falling into a bit of a rhythm maybe, trying to just wait for... I mean, again, that's another legitimate strategy, just waiting for Fouchot to make a small mistake. And another thing I want to bring up, Jesse, is something I've brought up in previous races as well. Spa's a very, very long track, especially running it for an hour and 15. So we have seen in some cases, cars needing to pit. Obviously, there's no mandatory stop, but obviously the Porsche is also very thirsty on fuel, the GT3s at least. So I do wonder if the GT3s can do this with a full tank of fuel, which might even bring a little bit of strategy into the mix. So that could jumble our order just a tiny bit. You see Sundstrom again doing very well in the championship. I believe tied for third in the championship and holding off the likes of Noble and Parker very well. I mean, this is very frustrating for Noble. Obviously championship on the line. You catch up to the back of the cars you're actually racing with. You want to get by, and being held up like this is not the best way, but it's completely fair. Sundstrom is well within their rights to defend against the likes of Parker and Noble. So only doing his job on track to kind of secure as best a position as he can too.
Well, here it is. We have Cody Pride's father in the chat. And hello to you, Mr. Pride. And, well, Cody is doing very well. But, Cody, I know you can't hear us, but your father and mother would like to breathe. So if you could make this pass, that would be just fine by them. But very patient is Cody Pride, waiting for the right time to make a move. These two had very light contact at the beginning of the race, and after that, it has been very cordial between the two of them. But the sort of inflection here is that Fouchot is not going to let Pride through, and Pride is not content sitting in second place. And Josh, I'm going to ask you this since you're more familiar with these Porsche Cup cars. What's the tire wear like? Because I worry that with how hard Pride is fighting this, going offline, I feel like Pride's using more tire. Could that potentially be an issue in an hour from now?
Oh, absolutely. I believe it was Donington very early on in the season that there was a tyre change involved. I believe there was also a little bit of strategy involved as well. It's Phil Webb entering pits as we're speaking about tyres and fuel and all that fun things, but maybe damage as well. Who knows? But I do remember in the chat afterwards, Cody Pride was saying that at one point their tyres had gone down to something like 24 psi. Obviously, you want to target 27.5, so that's a very, very big inflection there. Cody Pride going very wide. Pardon the rhyming going on there. Maybe just getting poo on just a little bit wrong. Back end steps out a little bit. He catches it. It's better than going around completely, but giving them a little bit more work to make up. So I'm wondering if Pride's feeling the pressure just a little bit. Obviously, knowing that they need to get by, and Fouchot will also need to drop back to Helmut as well. So, I mean, going back to the tire situation, who knows? Absolutely, who knows? And if you do need to make a fuel stop, as I was saying just a little bit previously, is it advantageous to take tires if you need to do fuel at the same time? It all comes down to what is the lesser of two evils. Mike Noble still caught behind James Parker. They have dispatched Sundstrom, but now on the path to try to get through Ryan Meenan as well.
Well, this race has a little bit of everything. Passing, close contention, drama, strategy. Where will everybody shake out in 56 minutes time? We will have to watch and find out, just like everybody else. Like you said, Noble gets past Sundstrom, and that is the one position gained for Mike Noble. Of course, Noble fighting McCauley for this championship win. Noble faces an uphill battle. They're going to have to step it up if they want to fight for this championship. Just 4 points in it between, actually, it's actually a little bit more than that now. It's 8 points in it between the two of them. And for Mike Noble, job one, again, easier to break it all down, but job one is to get by the entire Porsche Cup field. Now, that's easier said than done, but at least they're all right in front of him right now.
Absolutely, and no GT4 separating him between the two classes, and an hour to make it up. And the advantage to Noble about everything being so tightly packed is that in theory, dispatching should be a bit easy. You see Killian trying to break the slipstream there. It's not going to quite work. Parker side by side, almost going down. Going down into turn 5.
Look at this. How close do you like it, Josh?
Oh, it's
Look at this.
barely anything. Barely
What?
anything between Noble and Parker, and that is putting on the pressure. That is exactly what psyching out the car ahead mentally is all about. And, oh, wow. That had the potential to end so badly, but luckily it didn't. You know, we're still in this, and, you know, stewards maybe getting itchy fingers looking at that one.
What car control from Mike Noble and James Parker to have that come off without so much as contact, let alone an incident, as Kingston Lee is going to gain the 19th spot from Van Aken now. So up one spot is the 233 KL Racing GT4 Porsche. And here we go. Lap traffic playing a factor. The pass going to be made here potentially. It's going to be a drag race down the front straight here at Spa, but nothing doing. Fochow gets the lead again, and the number 11 Pride has to settle back for second, but that was nearly the pass for the lead.
Yeah, Zoe Tang doing, I think, the right thing there, just moving right out of the way. I think it's very similar to what old F1 drivers were saying back in the 90s. You see Senna come up behind you, you do not want to hold them up, and I can imagine looking in the rear view, you see the two leaders, you know, the two championship contenders overall coming through. The last thing you want is to hold them up, and that is the pass. Killian, Ryan, Meenan, Parker and Noble very late on the brakes, just squeezing through Killian. Just, you know, thank you so much moving on. And I'm not sure if it was a late move on Parker that Noble just took advantage of second hand, but very, very well done squeezing the 1, 2, 3 through as well. That could, again, another situation that could have ended so much worse than it did. But that's another one down, and a few more to go.
That was Killian Ryan Meenan hitting the eject button. He saw what was coming up behind him. He saw Parker and Noble and went, nope, not today. And he didn't even, you could tell, because Ryan Meenan didn't even try to turn in. He was as far to the left as you possibly could be. That to me is the international sign of I am letting you go. And also, I feel like Ryan Meenan could have had the crossover on Noble, but instead decided to be right up behind him. And that's good heads-up driving late into a championship, knowing that Noble is playing for a big prize here, and he's also racing Parker. And meanwhile, as the GT traffic continues to be a factor here, Cody Pride is right up behind him. Look at that. Look how quickly that is. Look how quick that is. The 11 jumps out of line. Cody Pride, though, with a higher driving position. Yes, indeed. This position will have seen that car in front, but still very quick moves. Decisive slicing through the pack. And here, will this be the time? Going around the outside, Cody Pride into the chicane. If they can hold this, this could be the lead. The 11 slides over a little bit, getting position. Could this be it? Side by side again, I don't think it's going to be. The 11 holds the position on the outside. Excellent positioning. Again, this is what we want to see. This is what we come for. This is the side-by-side racing, and absolutely massive respect between these two drivers. Obviously, they've been fighting all season long so far, you know, over the past few weeks, and you just see the absolute respect, the racecraft that comes with the lap times. It's one thing to be able to set the times that these guys can set, but to race door to door like that and not put it in the wall or ruin anybody else's race or your own, you know, that is where some real skill comes in. As you see James Parker coming up to the back of Gergo Panka, in turn on the back of Ertan, and they see Cody Pride making a move, looking on the inside of Lacombe, not quite going to be able to make it happen. And again, Fouchot, I'm just going to say this. I'm sorry, Josh. I just got to say this. If Jordan Fouchot wins this race, it will be the most deserved win I have ever seen. The amount of smart, educated, and safe defending that Jordan has done in this race so far is amazing. The only problem with this is that he has to keep it up for 50 more minutes against Cody Pride. And I don't know if he's going to be able to do that, but if he does, what an absolute massive drive to this point, 20 some minutes into the race, to keep Pride behind you that's been on you since the start, and to drive as well as they've both done without having major contact. Very well done between Pride and Fouchot. Absolutely deserve the plaudits. And speaking of which, Mike Noble up into the 11th place by Gergo Panker, now one step closer to his goal, solidly in the middle of the field now.
Yeah, it's definitely making down the time that he needs to. And if putting themselves in the position that if Macaulay were to make a mistake, that brings Noble right back into the question. Especially given, if obviously we've been told about this gentleman's agreement and it being broken. It's a slimmer of hope for Noble. It's not over yet at all. But going back to your thought on Fouchot, if he could hold off Pride for all of this race, I fully agree. I mean, I think it's safe to say that given the pace we've seen from Pride, despite being second in the championship so far, it's safe to say that maybe Fouchot is a little bit of the underdog here. Actually, we've just in terms of raw pace, because we've seen how consistent and how quick Cody Pride can be, and they'll be looking to make up the time lost in terms of points and all the mistakes of the season coming together and looking to kind of right those wrongs, so to speak. You see James Parker going very wide, going through Blochemont there, looking on the inside of the bus stop. Noble looking to take advantage of that too, and Ertan will get squeezed. Noble not letting any space happen. Noble sees an opportunity, absolutely taking it on the back of James Parker. And again, very similar to the move on Killian we saw there. Very, very tight, easy, not easy, but very ballsy almost to take advantage of that. And Noble will squeeze on through. That will be another position, but still Parker and Guglia in the way on the run up to Macaulay, who is absolutely massively ahead of the field.
He's just gone. Yeah, Joe Macaulay's gone. He's nearly 10 seconds in the lead. I wouldn't be surprised if the sector times update and he was 10 seconds in the lead. That's not insurmountable for Noble, but it will take some massive doing. Every lap now is going to expand that gap, and Macaulay, actually that went down. In fact, it went down by a full second to Joe Macaulay there in that sector. Very interesting to see why that maybe had a little bit of a moment coming up Radion then. But either way, Mike Noble on a fight for his championship life here, up into 10th place overall, but 4th in the order, as Mikael Sundstrom now getting a bit racy with Killian Ryan Mainen here.
Absolutely, and obviously, having the moves made on them earlier as well. They got dispatched very earlier by the train, that is Parker and Noble, and kind of leave them to their own devices to kind of fight a little bit too. And I was just having a little bit of a thought there, by the way, Jesse. I think if we're to assign a driver of the day, I think Noble's definitely already in with the shout so far. There's a couple of notable drivers, obviously, that have impressed us this race, and obviously, can Sundstrom be one of them? Obviously, clinging to the back of Ryan Mainen, which is obviously just no easy task at the best of times, and just
question
a bit wide.
Yes, indeed. Question from the chat asking why Redford has a 15-second penalty. Well, either on the opening lap or the second lap, I'm really not sure which one it was. They ran through a corner. We assume they had some sort of issue with the car because it looked very strange, but they ran right through a corner, as we can actually show you here, Michael Redford. This move here looks a bit strange, and contact made, and that I don't think is what that penalty was for. Yeah, that was contact, but that was not what the penalty was for. This is what the penalty was for. Contact there, and then completely taking out another driver there. And that is what the 15-second penalty was for, causing contact and leading to a car being taken out. 15 seconds awarded by the stewards. Of course, Monday Championship is live stewarded. So hello to all the lovely live stewards. I'm sure you're not used to hearing my voice on a Monday afternoon, but all that besides, hello to all of you lovely people in the stewards box, and thank you for all the work that you have done all season long. And of course, a big thank you to everyone out there watching on RCI TV. We hope that you are enjoying today's race as much as we are. We certainly are enjoying ourselves, and what an absolute treat this race has been. We'll invite you to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to not miss a single race. We'll be back with you on Friday for the GT3 World Championship. I'll be there with you on that with Mr. Mike Jones. And we invite you to come hang out with us on a Friday evening. And also, in addition to that, we'd like to thank all of our partners here at RCI Race Department, AK Informatica, Raceface, Speed Labs, and Sim Racing GP for helping us bring this race to you. More information about them in the description. And if watching this racing gives you the itch, why not join our Discord in the description? Get involved. We have all different splits for all different skill levels. Doesn't matter if you're an alien or just beginning, as we are encroaching on the halfway point in this race. Cody Pride, though, has let up a little bit on Fouchot, and I think that might have something to do with tires, Josh.
No, absolutely. You called it earlier, Jesse. You know, you're going offline, attacking so hard, and you know you do wear down the tires more than you think you realize. A little bit sideways going through there, actually, and maybe a bit of a telltale sign that that might actually be the case. Obviously, there are other reasons as well that it could also be down to the traffic and just being caught out a little bit, or maybe even a mistake at some point along the way. But don't discount them just yet. Obviously, we know exactly the kind of pace that they've had, and I won't expect them to be. I won't expect Cody to be behind for too long. I'm seeing Gergo leading, well, not leading, but it's Ertan leading a train of Cup cars. But looking at Panker, and I believe that is Redford. Maybe potentially holding them up just a tiny bit, but very, very side by side at the top of Urush. I mean, iconic at the best of times, scary all the time, and that is that's a bit of a code brown.
Yes, indeed it is. Look at this absolute melee here of cars. Everybody making it around, and very close indeed as oh my goodness. We have seen so much fantastic driving from everybody here today. Only the one penalty. And by the way, I've been actually I was sort of incorrect. Jake Coombs was very right to show you those two different incidents earlier, because when Tom Bryant handed me the slip, I didn't read it very well, but turn one, the penalty for car number 2 reads as this: 15-second penalty for car number 2, an aggressive overtake with position returned, followed by colliding with another car, the 49, and then taking out the 742 after said contact. So that was a compound penalty that was given for multiple contacts on the opening lap. So Jake Coombs was very right to show you all those replays, and I very much apologize to him. And thank you, Tom Bryant, for writing all of that out so that I can better understand that. Yeah, I didn't read that very carefully. I just read the last bit of it and went, yep, we saw that. But very well caught, Jake and Tom. Good job, boys. And we are, as we get closer to the halfway point in the race for today, of course, we are dealing with 3 different championships that are all going to be decided today. And we are going to go down to the pit lane and talk to Mr. Ryan Gill. Ryan?
Well, good evening, Jesse, or should I say good morning to both you and Josh. It's almost 5:45 in the morning here, local time around Spa. The sun will be rising shortly, but I have bit of an update for you gentlemen on the championship standings at this point in time in the race. So if everything stays as it is right now, at least for the GT3 class, we do see Jordan Fouchot as the champion by 19 points over the likes of Cody Pride. So Cody Pride, the objective has not changed. He has to get his car in front of Jordan Fouchot, but he's probably going to have to hope for a bit more than that going forward. Meanwhile, in the Cup class, it is Joe McCauley leading the way in the championship. No surprises there, dominating out in front. Mike Noble has a 22-point deficit at this point in time, and he's got a lot of ground to make up if he wants to start closing that gap. Ideally, needs to finish ahead of Joe McCauley, which is looking even more difficult by the second. And then in the GT4 class, they are a bit segregated because we have 3 different subclasses, but I can tell you at this point in time, Boardman will be winning the championship by 30 points. However, down in the GT4 Silvers, it's just 2 points between Joe Gleason and Stefan van Aken. And at this point in time, Victor Vondra is beating Michael Jakobsen to the GT4 AM title.
Well, thank you very much for that, Ryan. And while we got you, I'm curious about something. You're down in the pit lane, and I have to ask you a question. Where do you stand on tire wear? Do you think that will become a big issue? Do you think anyone will change tires in this finale?
Well, it's interesting you say that. I had a talk with Gogo Panka, who's racing tonight in the Porsche Cup class, and I had a bit of a discussion with him about when is the, should we say, limbo period where you're a bit unsure on changing tires. What amount of race length do you need to be looking at? And he said it can really be anywhere from 75 to 90 minutes. It's very track dependent. Around here at Spa, I don't actually know. If it's going to be more beneficial to take tires. I reckon with the pit lane time loss that you have, I mean, very long pit lane here as well, and if you're just going to be stopping for a few liters of fuel, I'm pretty sure that you're going to want to get out of the pit lane as quick as possible. I probably wouldn't take tires, to be honest, if I was in any of the classes racing here today. But, maybe some of these guys are thinking otherwise. Maybe they know more than I do. And it'll be interesting to see when some of them do decide to come into the pit lane what their strategy is.
Well, there you have it. Ryan Gill with his finger on the pulse and the calculator at the same time. Ryan, try and stay nice and warm down there. It's actually not that warm, 16 degrees C. And there you have it. There's are the championship numbers. We'll probably talk back with Ryan Gill, catch up with him in just a little while. Well, it is full steam ahead if you are Joe McCauley and Jordan Fouchot. It's all going your way. And by the way, we did at one point miss a pass for the lead in GT4. Pike is around Boardman, though that is not enough to give Andrew Pike for OTL the championship win in GT4. Boardman's going to need to fall down the order quite some margin. They are getting fought by the 7 of Kuzma right now, is Boardman, but it is 20 plus seconds to Baranowski behind them. So looking ever more like Boardman is going to be your GT4 champion, Josh.
Absolutely, and that's in line with predictions. However, dropping down the order definitely isn't what we want as we hit the halfway mark. Update on Redford with a drive-through for track limits. So if that 15 seconds wasn't bad enough, obviously being slapped with this again, slapped with another penalty, not really ideal, but, we did say at the start, maybe we'd see something like it, and seems to be the case. And at some point, wait, no, actually, no, it's the very same car design, different colours. That is Googlia. I was mistaken. Googlia and Noble are about to mistake. But no, Noble still very much behind James Parker. James Parker closing the gap to Googlia and just trying to find a way by. Couldn't make it happen in the bus stop this time around. Third time apparently not quite being the charm. Mike Noble sticking right to the back of James Parker of the 888 Porsche Cup. And I think it's only a matter of time until Parker finds their way through. A little band of GT4 cars up ahead as well, and maybe potentially able to use the traffic to their advantage, which, given some of the experiences Parker's had in their Monday championships, that's a very rare thing to be able to say, to actually use it to advantage rather than disadvantage. And side by side, going down into Lycombe, it got the inside too, and just squeezing on by, and not quite made it stick just yet. Googlia will put up a fight, will kind of cut off and have to defend against Mike Noble as well. Noble not able to take advantage of this time round, and that will separate the two. Noble looking on the inside. Parker has made the move stick, looking down into the inside, doing very well not to avoid contact. Very off-camber corner, very easy to lose the car and lose your line, but again, Mike Noble squeezing their way on by. It seems to be that the Parker's pass just kind of upset Guglia's line just enough to get not the best exit going out of Legroom, and just about that Mike Noble could just kind of capitalize on that.
Well, Googly is fading. I think that's obvious to see. They were running second, and now they're back down to the 4th or 5th place position, going 3 wide here. Not what you want to do. They will sort it out. And could this be another position for Mike Noble? I think it might be. The run out of the corner is going to be with him side by side, sideways. Mike Noble, another position getting by James Parker, and all of a sudden, Mike Noble becomes good again, but a wiggle out of the turn. And is that going to give the position back to Parker? I think it will.
But side by side, still coming on the run down to Bloshimon. Googly and not out for the camp just yet, squeezing it in, maybe potentially making it 3 wide. Not quite. Parker leaving just enough space on the inside there for Noble. Noble with a slightly better line, going down into Bloshimon. The cars will settle in again, but does that mean that Noble has a chance on the bus stop? Does that mean Googly has a chance on the bus stop? Does this mean that Googly has a chance to make the move that we've seen
No.
a few times so far? Googly on the outside of Mike Noble into the bus stop, just squeezing their way through. What a move!
How'd he do that? I can't do that. How can he do that?
Laws of physics have just broken, apparently, Jesse.
What on earth did we just witness? What a lap. Folks, this is for second in the Porsche Cup class, and they are all over each other. And Mike Noble, who was very briefly in for second, one wiggle, and then it was all for naught as he goes all the way back to the 10th place position, does Mike Noble, and that will reset his progress, but he cannot be discouraged. He has to get back on it and get back up there. He was so close, then yet so far away. Ryan Gill in the chat letting you guys know there's more than 3 championship battles, actually, because GT4 class has 3 different classes, the Pro, Silver, and Am, as Mike Noble looking to get by the 898 of Googly again down to the inside. The same thing as last time. That move came off for him the first time. Will it be as good the second time? I don't think it will be. And position not conceded by Guglia there. Excellent defensive driving, and that's going to let James Parker disappear up into the, near distance. But some of you wondering about the silver battle in the GT4 class. Van Aken is in front of Gleason. Gleason was the big loser in that accident with the 5 car of Redmond. Gleason was the one that got spun. Van Aken is in front of him, but as Mr. Ryan Gill pointed out in chat, Gleason still holds a 2-point lead, but very tentative that lead is, and there is no change in the AM battle between the two of them. Vondra still leading the AM battle in GT4 for the championship. So all of that reset, 2.1 second lead by Fouchot over Pride, Heilman third, and back in the Porsche Cup class, Joe McCauley has a 13.8 second lead. It was 10 seconds before Parker Noble and Guglia all got to racing, but thanks to them being 3 wide at one point, that has allowed McCauley to expand that gap. Parker now holds second, Noble in third, and Guglia back down to 4th. So that pass did come off eventually for Mike Noble, getting third in class. And, of course, this is the battle for just about second place. And this is exactly what Pike needs. Pike needs Boardman to lose positions. Kuzma right there trying to make the pass. Won't have it done here. Has to fall back into line. Very careful down through here. And this is what they need, though. They need more than this. Boardman would need to fall to right around 21st overall for this to have any meaningful impact in his championship run.
Absolutely, but still a massive, massive gap ahead that Boardman does have. Noble got past Guglia somewhere along the fray, so, Noble still James Parker in sight, still chasing down, and Nico Kuzma looking to make a move on Andy Boardman as well. And I think, as you said just a moment ago, Jesse, the pace that Kuzma has at the moment, obviously, Boardman does need to fall a few places for any real sort of effect to happen overall. So maybe Boardman is just deliberately taking this one just a little bit easy. You said it before. Do you play it safe? Do you use the kind of points buffer that you have and just kind of not take any real chances, not get too racy with people, and just try and keep the car and bring it home safe. So, the last thing that Boardman needs right now is a potential meatball on the car to give either a lengthy repair or even drop out of the race entirely. So, maybe that explains the change in pace so far. Maybe that explains why Pike is pulling ahead a fair amount, but ultimately, as you say, it doesn't change too much so far. And let's see where we are with the order of things at the moment. It seems to be that we have a brief moment of just, being able to kind of analyze and sort of just slow down.
I'm catching my breath, Josh.
Absolutely. It's been side-by-side action this entire way through. I mean, 45, I think we're more than 45 minutes in right now, but yeah, no, we've been going for a little while now, and obviously in the box, is a lot of energy still going around at the moment. So just a brief moment of solace before it all kicks off again. Obviously, and speaking of kicking off again, I'm also spectating Pride on my screen at the moment, and I dare say that the red Porsche of Fouchot is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the gap is shrinking. It was just 1.6, now 1.4 seconds. Fouchot behind traffic, going on the run down to Blochemont. Is this going to be one of the small pieces of the puzzle that allow Pride to catch up to Fouchot? Overall championship on the line for these two, and they've been driving exactly like it means what it means.
Very interesting comment from Darren Pride, Cody Pride's father, as the Pride Tribe in full force here today. Darren wondering if his son may be saving fuel, knowing that fuel may be required here in this race, and could that potentially be what Cody Pride was doing? Ryan Gill said, well, why don't you ask him? Darren Pride said that, well, I'm not going in there and disturbing him, and that's very thoughtful of you, Darren, and I think we're all wondering the same thing, to be fair. Was Cody Pride in any way saving fuel? Because the pace very clearly is still there, down by 2.1 earlier. It's 1.6 now. Could that have been Cody trying to save some seconds of fuel or some liters of fuel to get them to the finish of this race? Like you said, Josh, very thirsty, that Porsche.
Absolutely, we've seen it before. I believe it was at Donington we saw a car stop for, I believe it was for fuel as well, and Paul Ricard too. We did see a fair few of the GT3 stop there as well. So, I mean, Spa's a big track. It's a big track. We're running for a long time, and looking at the pace at the moment, it definitely does seem like that could be a factor, but obviously we can't say for certain. Fouchot will be staring at the delta, currently 1.7 seconds, but that's with traffic too. Cody Pride being held up just a tiny amount there. Coming up to, I believe, I'm not entirely certain who that is in the GT4 that currently separates Pride and Fouchot. But this fight is still very much on, and it actually does bring to mind a fair amount. Like, what if Fouchot has to make the stop? I've said it before. It's the time that you spent slowed down here is still significantly more than what you would normally like, and the pressure's building. It's not just a case of on track action, but definitely in terms of strategy as well. And Mike Noble still on the hunt for James Parker. The gap decreasing quite massively, and still some 14 seconds behind Macaulay. And obviously don't forget, Macaulay is the championship leader for the Cup car class, and Mike Noble has it all to do right now.
Well, I have to say, Mike Noble continuing to fight. He briefly had second about 2 laps ago, lost second out, went all the way back to 4th place in the class. Well, Guglia has been dispatched, and now it is all about James Parker, but it is going to be a very long road up to Joe Macaulay. Mike Noble really needs to make this a very, very quick battle with Parker. I don't know if you've ever met James Parker, but he's not the get out of the way kind of guy. So I don't suspect we're going to see that. And Mike Noble, also a very calculated man himself. Two titans of sim racing and ACC going at it right here today. And very always love to see Parker and Noble race each other.
Absolutely, just absolute two titans in the community, really. Two names that, like, if you've stuck around for any period of time, two names you very quickly become familiar with, and for good reason. These guys, in terms of pace and racecraft, I mean, just look at how close McNoble can follow at this point in time, and this is, this is fairly tame compared to what we've seen earlier in the race. These guys have been stuck. A little bit of a flash there for McNoble. Obviously, frustration maybe setting in just a little bit. But yes, these guys have been following, going 1-2 for pretty much this entire race so far. Who's going to get the better exit? Mike Noble taking a slightly later apex there to try and get on the power sooner, to try and maybe get a run up erosion down the Camel Straight. I mean, obviously aerodynamics as well, these cars, the Cup cars, not quite as affected as the GT3s, but still fairly dependent on that. So the slipstream does make an effect. Are we going to see an attempt from Parker to try and break the slipstream? Jesse, absolutely correct. Noble does indeed have the suck. Looks to be like Parker maybe eased off just a little bit there. The closing speed absolutely massive around the outside of Lacombe. Can he make it stick going side by side? Noble will have the inside now, but that quickly switches back. Now Parker has the inside, and Parker will have the inside to the next turn too.
Oh, sideways! Sideways is Parker!
Absolute wiggle. We saw that a few laps back. We saw Noble have a wiggle on the overtake. This time it's Parker having a wiggle whilst defending. And this goes down to what we were saying before. These cars, no traction control, no jab rates. And as Jesse was saying, rear tires, as soon as they start to wear down just a little bit.
Oh, baby!
Almost.
Massive save!
Oh, that could have been so much worse than it was for both cars involved. But you cannot fault Parker for conceding that. You could only have praise for keeping the car not just from looping round, but stopping, but for preventing the car from hitting Noble as well. Wow.
James Parker with the car control. Well done, lad. I don't know if there's very many people that would have been able to save that. Folks, try that at home in your own simulator. Get a Porsche Cup car that sideways and see how well you do on worn tires. That was mega.
No, absolutely. And update on the cars in front, it seems to be that traffic has played a part and still continues to play a part now. For a second, Pride was on the back of Fouchot. Boardman holding up just a little bit at the front there. The gap now kind of equalized out to what it was, but this fight is also still not done. Parker looking to take back that position. And just seeming like, just trying to do exactly what was just done in him, just kind of return the favor. Can they get the run? Maybe not the overtake into T1, but can they get the run down the straight? We've just seen exactly how valuable the slipstream actually is. How far the closing speed can go. And if you can get the run down this straight here, if you can maximize your exit, because on the way up to Lacombe, the run from the exit of La Source up to the entrance of Lacombe is just one big straight, really. Eau Rouge is just so quick of a corner that, can you even count it as much of a corner? I mean, it is certainly not a straight line, but flat all the way through. Your foot is absolutely pinned from the exit of T1 all the way up to Lacombe, and Parker closing the gap very late on the brakes and just not quite able to make it stick in the way that Noble was able to make it stick just a lap ago. So the move is about as good as done. Noble heads up, trying to catch up, in the 20 minutes we have left to Macaulay, sorry. I mean, not a whole lot of time to make up the gap, but, potentially could be done.
Well, you may be wondering, we haven't heard too much from head steward Tom Bryant today, and that's because there hasn't been a whole lot of incidents. There have been several that have been reviewed. No further action for the 14 and the 778 with contact. No further action for the 420 and the 233 for contact, and no further action for the 888 and the 123 for inconsequential contact. A warning for the 3, though, for forceful or aggressive overtaking when lapping a car. and a racing incident between the 49 and the 420 with minor contact. So that is literally it. Tom Bryan has been in communication with me saying that he fears it's been such a clean race that some of his stewards have been falling asleep in the box. Get comfy, guys.
Absolutely, pull up some pillows and just try to brew some coffees. Try to stay awake, because how could you sleep at a race like this? It's just so action-packed. We're looking at a replay here. Adam Banfield making a move on Hellman. Goes in a little bit hot, but just about avoids contact. Keeps the car clean, and a little bit of a check there. Just kind of rein yourself in. A little bit of an opportunity to just kind of reflect and just take a breath and get back under pace. And here, what's this? I think we see Pride putting through short under pressure yet again. Whatever has happened.
I think Darren Pride might have been on to something. And of course, he would know more than anyone else. I think Cody Pride might have been saving tires, saving fuel, went down to a different map, and was just sort of coasting around the track for a little while to get a little bit of insurance, because if it was tire degradation, that car would not suddenly come back alive. And Fosho has not done anything that would lead me to believe that too much with their face. Oh, is that Benjamin Heilman? That is Heilman. There's been an accident. Banfield and Heilman, surely.
And that was a Bloshimont, very high speed corner, slight lift, maybe a drop down.
Oh, was this a lap car?
Oh no, that's. Oh yeah,
it was.
I don't know. Was that?
Oh, it was all of them.
Yeah, I don't think there was actually contact between Hellman and the lad car. I think Hellman had to lift off to avoid contact, and obviously Porsche being rear-ended, you lose the back end. Acts like a pendulum, pulls you right round, and I fear that is what happened to Hellman. I don't think the contact, if any, with the GT4 was so significant, but I do feel Hellman may have just lost the car there, and that's unfortunate.
That showed up on my list of incidences, which, by the way, we have a list of things that are going on in the race. The sim reports stuff to us, and I saw the contact between the 24 and the 3 and thought that was it. Turns out that was only the end of the story. Benjamin Heilman losing it on the inside of another car. Folks, these Porsches are so aero dependent. And like Josh said, when you lift off or change the balance for a mid-rear engine car, again, you saw the exact same thing happen earlier to James Parker, and he saved it. That shows you how hard it is to save something like that. And of course, Banfield was just a passenger there, and unfortunately, Banfield now has damage himself, as Baranowski has had a spin now. What happened here?
They just go side by side, and just as we're talking about that pendulum effect and how hard these cars are to save, even the mid-engine Caymans, they still suffer from the same problem somewhat, and just kind of proving what we were just saying a second ago. It's like a giant grandfather clock, really. You have to match it all the way in the back, and you have a degree of forgiveness in the slip, but not a whole lot. And sadly, it is all too easy. Look at that sunset, though, Jesse. I know we were expecting the sunset towards the end of the race here, but it's starting to. The reflection on the back of the number 11 is just absolutely stunning. Just getting so close yet again, like we saw in the opening laps, and just wow.
Sunrise coming up. We were promised a sunrise by Mr. Ryan Gill, and we are getting one here, 6:08 a.m. This race started in the light, but it is only getting lighter, and the sun is going to illuminate 3 different class champions today. And for the very first time in more than 30 minutes, Cody Pride is going to get side by side with Fauchot and nearly gets the pass done, does not, has to fall back in line, but it is game on again for the lead of this race and the win in the final round of the Porsche Masters Cup. Looking down the inside, can they squeeze in? Yes, they can. Cody Pride side by side with Fauchot. There's going to be contact between the two of them, but inconsequential, and position not conceded. Cody Pride back down to second place. for the 5th time in this race. They've been side by side many times. Excellent racing here.
Just say massive kudos to Cody there, because Cody who could have gotten their elbows out there. They could have tried to hold on to the space and maybe held the ground a little bit more, but I actually think Cody backed down a little bit there to get the position back. I think as soon as the contact was made, a little bit of a check to yourself, realizing, hey, this pass maybe isn't quite all that there, maybe isn't quite all that clean, and just lining up to do it again. And massive, and if I don't know if I'm correct in that, but massive kudos to Pride if I am, because that is absolute sportsmanship at its best. And just wow.
Fouchot, I said nearly an hour ago, if Fouchot is able to defend for that long, he absolutely deserved it. And Cody Pride, who may have at least one more trick up their sleeve after 30 minutes or more of this being in sort of an ebb and a flow, it has now reignited. This is incredible stuff.
No, absolutely. And it comes back to fuel saving. I do wonder how Fouchot is managing. Obviously, I think, we have a theory that Cody Pride just backed down the engine map for a fair chunk of the race. But we haven't seen that drastic a change of pace in Fouchot, so maybe they've just been managing it dynamically on the fly, turning it up for the straights and turning it down for the corners. And is that going to be enough in and of itself? I don't know. Fouchot going defensive down Camel. Cody Pride having the inside going down into Lycum. Cars picking the line, they're committing. Pride not quite on the inside, but it seems to be that this is one of many spots where it could happen. Pride on the inside again, on the exit of Lycum. Not quite able to make it there, but definitely establishing a presence on the run down. And that's a cut all the way to Olaf Leffer in the pits. And obviously, I'm watching the battle for first and second at the moment as well on my screen, and it seems to be that Fouchot is still just about ahead, but only just hanging on in there. Only 13.5 minutes of the race left to go, and I don't think you could ask for much more than this.
No, you can't. Well, folks, you wanted a finale, and Cody Pride, a big wiggle there. We're told earlier that Cody Pride had a huge save earlier when we were cut away. I think we were watching Noble and Parker do basically the same thing. Pride had a huge save that almost ended in tears, but an excellent save, and there again, into Blochemann, getting it done. And sometimes it's more about saving the car than making up time. And as we get closer to the end of this race, we talked about tire degradation. We talked about how difficult it is to drive these cars. Even on the best of times, these cars are handling poorly, folks. I just want you to know how bad any of these Porsches, this is not a Porsche commercial if you didn't guess, these Porsches do not handle well on light fuel with completely worn out tires at the end of an hour and 15-minute race. And that's where we're having it. Look at this. The leader into pit lane. Fouchot into pit lane, and that is going to hand the lead over to Cody Pride. Jordan for Prime Racing into the pit lane. They've had enough.
No, absolutely. And that will be the stop for fuel, I think, that we were just talking about. And again, as it stands right now, I believe that Fouchot only needs to hold the position in second to hold on to the position here. So where is Banfield? That is the big question right now. Mac Noble still ahead of Parker, but still a good 11.9 seconds behind Macaulay. So still a lot to chase down there. Banfield is... Oh, where is Banfield? I'm trying to find on my screen now. Banfield is coming through the source now, so I don't exactly know where Fouchot is. Fouchot is still in the pit lane, so Banfield will get by, and I don't know what that will do to the championship standings.
Well, if Banfield is able to hold on to the second place position, keep in mind Banfield got damage from the contact with Heilman. Banfield completely, track was blocked, had nowhere to go. And Banfield does come through. You actually can see the damage on Banfield's car as he drove by the commentary position. Very heavily damaged on the nose of the number 3 EBM Porsche. There it is indeed. You can see that. And it will be, as Fouchot still in the pit lane at this point, this will have a major championship implication if Pride and Banfield do not have to come down pit lane. This is incredible stuff. Undoubtedly, we'll be going to Ryan Gill here in a moment whenever he's available, who will talk us through this. But at the moment, I'm pretty confident because Stanciu now in third place, Fouchot in fourth, and I can guarantee you that would be enough in the current way they are lined up to hand Cody Pride this championship in the final 15 minutes, Josh.
Absolutely, and again, I did say strategy could also be a factor as well as the side-by-side racing, and let's face it, there's been no disappointment of both sides of that coin, and Fouchot with it all to make up now. I don't know if they stopped for tyres. The last pit stop time for Fouchot was a 1:31. Hellman with a 1:33 in the pit stop, so 1 minute 31 in the pit stop on lap 26. Who knows? But that's Cody Pride in the pits too. That's Cody Pride having to make a stop.
They must all reckon they can't make it, Josh. They must all reckon they all can't make it. And Cody Pride, who is right up behind Fouchot, they're coming in, will have to pay very close attention indeed to what this pit delta is for Pride. Because if Pride is even 1 second quicker on pit lane than Fouchot, Cody Pride is going to be your leader of this race. Banfield's in as well.
That has just given Fouchot the biggest opportunity and chance. Fouchot currently coming up to Blochemont, in case you guys are wondering whereabouts he is on track right now. Banfield also in the pits, as you say, too, Jesse. And this is going to be where this could be won or lost. It all depends. Cody Pride's just pulling into their box now, it seems. They've just come to a stop right now. And that will give Fouchot the chance. Fouchot currently on the run down to La Source in a little bit of traffic, but that isn't going to hold them up too much. Cody Pride on the way now. So
Pride's on the way out.
Definitely did not stop for tyres in that, and this is where it's going to count on the end of pit road. Fouchot will have traffic going up Eau Rouge. Is that going to be a difference? Obviously, Pride now passed the pit limiter section. Pride's pit stop was a 1 minute 30.9 compared to Fouchot's 1:31.9. So that 1 second you were just talking about.
Here it is. Here it is. That's Cody Pride.
That's Pride up ahead, and again, just Fouchot being held up just a little bit by the GT4. Banfield still in the pits, maybe repairing the damage from earlier. So again, just that does mean that as it stands, I believe Fouchot will take the championship even still.
Oh, but look how wild Cody Pride is. The tires, they cooled off in the pit lane. They didn't change them, but they're old and they're very cold. The 1 second difference in pit timer, that's all they needed for Fouchot to lose the lead. But it will not matter as long as Fouchot can stay right behind Cody Pride. That is all that it would take. But is Fouchot going to even do that? The warmer tires from the outlap from pitting 1 lap earlier. It is all Fouchot now on Cody Pride as Stanciu now has the lead of the race, but a 5 second penalty. What is the 191 thinking?
In Stanciu's position right now, it's a little bit bittersweet, I'd imagine, being ahead, but in terms of strategy, it all depends as well. How well has Stanciu managed fuel as well? Have they been saving for most of the race too, and do they have enough to go to the end? And that's another good point. By how much did these guys refuel too? Who is running the lighter car, and how big of a difference is that going to make at the final 7 minutes exactly of the race left to go? This is stunning, honestly. This is like, we've had some very, very, very good racing this season so far. And that's Emil Stanciu into the pits too. So with a 5 second time penalty, that is almost for certain going to mean that Cody Pride will take the lead of this race for the first time since we started. And Fouchot will drop into second. That is if Fouchot cannot make a move stick coming up. They're still very much within the window, within the gap to be able to make that happen. Maybe not down into T1, but we've seen exactly what the slipstream can do for the Cup cars, and I think we're about to see what it can do for the GT3s too. Almost a little bit of contact, and I believe that was Redford, getting right out of the way of the two leaders, not wanting to get involved. Side by side though, Fouchot losing a little bit of time, and I think that might mean that they may struggle to catch up coming up to the top of Eau Rouge.
Well, just to keep you up to date on the other championships, the other races, Joe McCauley still holds on to about 11 to 12 second lead over Mike Noble. Banfield in the 3 Porsche in the GT3 class, I should say, is in between them. Noble up to second, but that will not be enough. He's still 11 to 12 seconds back, and I don't think he's going to make that up in 5 minutes and some change. Pike leads Boardman in the GT4 championship. Boardman needed to finish well down the order, but Boardman is still running second. He actually got by Kusuma earlier, so Boardman back up into the second place. They were running third, but that is not enough. Pikeman may take the win, but Boardman will be crowned the champion there. It's looking like a championship for Joe McCauley, and the main focus here, Cody Pride and Fouchot. This would not be enough, as reported earlier by Ryan Gill down in the pit lane. Fouchot would need to finish 3rd or 4th for this to be a legitimate chance, but that's not what this is about. This is not for a championship. This is for Pride. This is for a win, and this is for all of the marbles with 5 minutes to go. Going around the outside is Fouchot, not able to hold it there. Cody Pride with the inside is going to maintain the lead, but all of a sudden the hunter becomes the hunted with less than 5 minutes to go.
Absolutely, and on the run down to No Name, Pride had a little bit of a wiggle. I actually thought they'd lost it at one point in time. Amazing save, but it's fairly obvious at this point in time that Porsche, especially the number 15, is very much worse for wear with those tyres, and you see the gap just close right up going through the bus stop there. Fouchot still right on the back of Pride, lost a little bit of time in the last lap due to traffic, but that time is now completely almost negated. So it comes down to who has the best pace for the end of this race. Can Fouchot take back that first position? As we've said a couple of times now, he doesn't need to win the championship. He doesn't need to get this pass, but you could tell he wants it. He wants to take this. I mean, being a racer, being at this point in the race, competitiveness is going to sink in, and you do not want to be the guy that comes P2. And that much is becoming very, very clear. Can he get the slipstream going down the Campbell? Can he keep up or even close the gap slightly? Just about. Can he start putting together all of the little pieces they need to be able to line up an overtake on Cody Pride? And the amount of support for Cody Pride, not just tonight but all nights, has been absolutely immense as well, and that has also got to play on Fouchot's mind. I don't know if Fouchot looks back on the streams that we do or looks in the chat, but
Pride's wide.
Yeah, Pride makes a bit of a mistake, goes a little bit wide. Fouchot making a little bit of advantage of that actually. Pride holding the inside, going down into No Name.
Oh, that's so lucky. That's so lucky. I have just decided, Josh, I am never having kids, because the Pride family, the Pride tribe, as they call themselves, this has to be just a heart in your throat sort of moment. And they deal with this every week with Cody. I can't take this. My heart can't take this. I only do this once or twice a week, and I can't take it. I don't know how they're taking it. I am not having kids. I couldn't do this.
No, that's another good point I did actually want to bring up, because obviously, like having a supportive family when it comes to this sort of thing, you have to give a massive, massive shout out to the Pride tribe. I can't imagine, how much love and support goes on within those 4 walls, and I think they deserve a shout out all in of themselves, because it obviously does pay off. I mean, Pride has so much pace and so much talent when it comes to this, and it's difficult to ignore that. It's very, very difficult to ignore, and definitely deserves a shout out. But even still, Fouchot very late on the brakes, looking on the outside.
Oh, look at this!
Getting the switchback going through the bus stop, and that means that the potential pass, Fouchot just about ahead. Only 1 minute 50 left to go. Pride tucks back in the rear, and just as I'm kind of seeking out the love of the support that Pride actually has, Fouchot literally just showing exactly. He's not done yet. He's not rolling over. He's not submitting so far, and just wow.
Well, it is all to do here It is put up or shut up time. Side by side, they are going to have contact, and it's going to be Fouchot hard into the wall with a GT4. Major contact at the end of Radion, and that's going to do it, folks. Fouchot, major damage, contact again with the GT4, perhaps in frustration, and side by side up Arouge, and Radion has come to tears here with just a few minutes left in the race, and there has been contact with the GT4 hard into the wall. Fouchot. Cody Pride hits the eject button, escapes, and Cody Pride is going to win this race. And what has this done to the championship now?
Well, it seems to be that Fouchot is still just about ahead. He is still in P2, but that, again, even from the comments box, I'm feeling the attention here. I'm looking through all the timings. I'm looking to see where everybody else on track actually is and trying to see how much damage is on Fouchot's car. That's got to be fairly substantial. I'm looking at it now, looking at Fouchot. Another incident in the GT4 field. That's Andrew Pike involved with, I believe, that is Andy Boardman. So, again, the leaders for the GT4 championship also coming together as well. So, again, another...
Oh, dear.
I mean, Boardman was still ahead by a fair amount, but this could still lead into, potentially, as we were saying before, potentially a win for Pike.
This could be it. Pike needed a lot of help, and this is what happened. But Andy Boardman getting spun around, contact there, and trying to rejoin quickly, knows that these are positions that they are losing, and it's going to be just about near contact. Something wrong with the car there. He's not going the correct way. I don't know if it's even fired, the 69 of Andy Boardman. And these are positions, some of them are GT4 positions they're losing that they can ill afford to lose. Gets the car refired and going the right way. But Boardman actually only lost a few positions there. I think they'll be fine. Andrew Pike for OTL still out in the lead. And Boardman only lost one position. They must have had, and they did indeed, have a massive start. And look at Cody Pride coming to the line, finishing backwards. We're going to see this. The big celebration from Cody Pride. The Pride Tribe will be celebrating tonight because it's going to be a win in the series finale. And what a win it was. The final minute contact drama in Arouge and Radion. The escape button hit by Pride. And it's going to be a very sweet victory indeed, as Fouchot does come home to finish second with a completely demolished number 11. Fouchot wins the championship. Pride wins the race. Joe McCauley for hashtag Blame Mike Jones will win the Porsche Cup competition today. The pole and the win ran away from him, and an overall podium as well over Mike Noble and James Parker, filling out the top three. Banfield will come home in third in the number 3 in the GT3 championship, by the way. And Andrew Pike does end up winning for OTL in the GT4 champ over Kuzma and Boardman in third. Boardman will finish third today and win the GT4 championship as well. Vondra will win the silver champ over Van Aken, even though they finished in the reverse position. I believe that's correct. Hold on one second. I'll try to make sure I'm correct in that. No, excuse me. Joe Gleason, hold on. Did Joe Gleason beat Van Aken, I wonder? Vondra won AM, by the way, is what I was trying to convey there. Victor Vondra won the AM class in GT4, and I think Joe Gleason, no, he didn't. Joe Gleason did not win, as far as I know. I think Van Aken won, but maybe Ryan Gill can update us on that. What an incredible race that came down to the end. As we tat up all the points, we will show you the results. GT3, Pride over Fouchot, and Banfield the podium. Heilman, Leffe, and Stanciu the finishing positions there. In Cup, McCauley over Noble, who came from all the way into the back to finish just 8.8 behind. He was more than 25 at one point. and James Parker rounds out the podium in Cup. Googlia Panker, your top 5. Killian Ryan Meenan, Ertan, and Sundstrom are the final finishing positions. GT4, Pike over Kuzma and Boardman after that massive shunt at the end of the race are your podium positions. Kingston, Lee, Van Aken is the top 5. Gleason, Baranowski, Vondra, Jacobson, Redford, Tang, and Webb are the final positions, 6 through 12. And, well, what a spirited race that was. And we can only go down to the pit lane and Ryan Gill, who has hopefully sorted all this out. What do you have for us, Ryan Gill?
Well, Jesse, it's everyone's not favorite time of the championship. It's the time that we say goodbye to the championship. But there's some murmurs down here in the pit lane. Quite a few people unsure about the incident that happened between the likes of Jordan Fouchot towards the top of Radion. Obviously got caught up with a GT4 car on the final lap of the race. And as of this point in time, we don't actually know what the verdict on that incident is. It's entirely possible that there could be a post-race penalty coming the number 11's way. And let me tell you right now, Cody Pride is behind Jordan Fouchot by 5 points. If Fouchot is demoted 1 position through a time penalty, Cody Pride becomes the GT3 Porsche Masters Cup champion for Pro. So plenty could still be decided after the flag here. Joe McCauley, though, he's definitely got a championship in the bag in the Cup class for Pro. 12 points ahead of the likes of Mike Noble, and it's Killian Ryan Meenan that will round out the top 3 for that championship. That much is confirmed. Obviously, we saw Boardman and Pike get into an accident as well. You'd need a fairly hefty penalty for the likes of Andy Boardman for him to be demoted from champion status. I don't think that's coming his way. He's currently 25 points clear as it stands at the flag from Andrew Pike. So I think GT4 is pretty much set and stone. But the GT3 class, well, it's going to come down to post-race stewarding, Jesse.
Well, thank you, Ryan Gill. And I got to say, you hate to see it come down to post-race adjudication, but there were several incidents that could vastly change this. Thank you, Ryan Gill, for your work to clear that up. I guess we're going to have to end on not knowing exactly what it was. We can tell you as it stands right now. It is how we reported it, but Ryan Gill letting you know that it is subject to change pending an investigation. Final thoughts, Joshua Devonshire.
I think when a race is so action-packed that, even after the time is ticked down, the checker flags waved, that it's still undecided as to who's actually won the championship. I think that, from watching it from a standpoint, from a viewer's perspective and from our perspective here in the box, I do feel like absolutely epic race, absolutely amazing. I don't think many people really put too much of a foot wrong, but the incidents that did happen were fairly huge and unfortunately affected the people who had the most to lose. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But from what we have seen, that was amazing.
Well, folks, when we came on air today, we promised you a fantastic race with championship drama right down to the wire, and it did not disappoint. From the drop of the green flag, there was drama all the way throughout it. In the end, several accidents, major collisions changed the complexion of this race. Post-race stewarding going to get involved. That may affect the championship points because they ended as close as they started. All we can say is a very good, excellently ran race by Cody Pride and Joe McCauley, who did everything that they needed to do, and also Pike for doing the most that they could do to try and win in the GT4 championship. Congratulations to our winners, and it is on that note that it is sad to say that this was the championship finale. We thank all of you for being with us here on the Monday Porsche Cup Masters. I have been Jesse Lee, filling in for Mr. George D. Mac Smith as he gets settled in his new home. I hope that move is going well for you, George. We love you and miss you. And for Joshua Devonshire and Jake Coombs bringing you all the action today, from Ryan Gillen to the pit lane and all of the stewards, we would like to thank you for being a part of today's broadcast. And we invite you to join us this Friday for the GT3 World Championship with me and Mr. Mike Jones on that one. Until then, keep your eyes peeled for the next Porsche or Monday Championship coming up into the future. Join the Discord, like, subscribe, hit that bell, and we will see you this Friday for more racing. Thank you all, and have a great afternoon.